Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And boy, do we have a show in store for you today. We have a lot to cover. We've got breaking news coming out after we read viewer comments, but a major local breaking story that I have a little information on, two very different breaking stories. That's coming up in just a second. We have some updates from past programs. We're going to talk more about redistricting, but let's get right to it. No sense wasting any time because we have a quote from Karen. If you have not been tuning in, maybe you've been on vacation, Karen has been kind enough to once a week send us a quote for the program. Her goal, as she stated originally, was to make the name Karen great again, which I thought was very clever. She said, "Good morning, Frank." Well, good morning. You stole my quote this week, which was from Simone Sanders. I mentioned it yesterday where Simone Sanders said, "If I had hair, it would be on fire." Thanks to the listeners for their encouragement, Karen said. "I'm happy to be on board." Yes, everybody likes Karen's quote. Seriously, though, the quote this week is from the great American satirist, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, of course. Quote, "Sometimes I wonder whether the world is being run by smart people who are putting us on or by imbeciles who really mean it." Have a great day. Well, you have a great day too, Karen. Boy, that fits, doesn't it? That fits in today's world and today's society. Well, let's read it one more time. "Sometimes I wonder whether the world is being run by smart people who are putting us on or by imbeciles who really mean it." Mark Twain. Thank you, Karen. We always appreciate it. We add that to our list. We've got Karen sending us a quote each week. We've got Climate Fact Friday with Bob. We have a lot of fun on this program. Okay, breaking news coming in, as far as I could tell, is not being reported anywhere else. But Steuben County has filed their appeal in that case with Sheriff Allard. I think many of us were hoping beyond hope that that would not be the case. Again, the major question is, what are they appealing? Of course, you've seen the sheriff on this program numerous times, and guess what? Because of this breaking news, you're going to see him on tomorrow's broadcast so we can find out a little bit more about what this means. But again, not getting this anywhere else, Steuben County has filed their appeal in that case. And I know this gets confusing because, again, I've asked numerous people, what are they appealing? Because they put in their, for lack of a better term, notification that they were considering an appeal. We wondered when that would take place, if it would take place. Of course, the sheriff completely vindicated in the Supreme Court's decision. There was some very harsh language on the legislature in their executive session and the deal with Sheriff Allard not being done in good faith. When I say deal, that's definitely not the right word. But in their, for lack of a better word, attack on the sheriff was not done in good faith. I mean, there was some very strong language there. But that's what it was, language. They were reprimanded. So what are we appealing? Why are we appealing this? Last I knew, what were we up to? $250,000? Is that wrong? That maybe I've got to look up my numbers. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've rehashed this to talk about it. I think many of us were hoping that this appeal conversation would be kind of drifting off into the sunset, but that is not the case. So we have huge amounts of money being spent by taxpayers. Yes, you, if you are a resident of Steuben County, at a time when everybody's talking about, because of the big beautiful bill or whatever the case may be, that New York's not going to get as much. What then exactly are we spending this money for? I think that is a very fair question. I, again, will try to look up, because I have it here somewhere. Why am I? Oh, yes. So as of the article that I did for WYDCTV.com back all the way in December of last year, taxpayers have already been on the hook then for $200,000. So now, with this appeal, how much more are we wasting? That's the question this morning. So, again, we will have the sheriff on tomorrow. And I will be mentioning this throughout the broadcast because as far as I'm aware and the research that I have done, this is the first you are hearing about it. It's a story that I think many of us have been following right along from the beginning. We've been lucky enough to have Sheriff Allard on the program numerous times, and most interviews, if not all of the interviews we've had since this case was originally brought up, has asked the question, what's going on with the county? So you've been following it. I know just yesterday we had someone suggest that in the nomination process for first responders for the Memorial Park in Irwin, that Sheriff Allard be recognized. I did not do any more research. I think he may have already been recognized, but someone's suggesting that. We have a lot of fans of Sheriff Allard here. I think we're going to have a lot of people as they wake up and hear this news that are going to be very disappointed, but we'll keep you updated on every little bit of information that we can get about this because it is very new. It is fluid, as they say in Washington, so we'll keep you updated. Another breaking story on a completely different note, but talk about a huge win for our good friends at the Corning Moose Lodge. You know that I bring them up a lot. They have these great fundraisers. I've been to quite a few of them. They did one for causes near and dear to my heart, the Salvation Army of Corning. Huge success. That was a few months ago. Time flies, so it could have been winter. It was actually probably was. It was a little while ago. But talk about a huge a huge party. I don't know if you can read that, but do you want to meet Ross Chastain? I know we've got a lot of NASCAR fans out there. Well, you better go to the Corning Moose Lodge coming up this Saturday. Ross Chastain, NASCAR driver, world-renowned. He will be visiting the Corning Moose Lodge for an exclusive meet and greet. If you can't read it there on your screen, I'm going to read it for you. It's this Saturday from 6:30 till 7:30. And what you can expect, you can meet Ross Chastain in person, get your favorite memorabilia signed during the autograph session, and take photos and create lasting memories. But please arrive early as the event is expected to draw a huge crowd. Bring your favorite items for Ross to autograph, and don't forget your camera for pictures. This unforgettable evening with one of NASCAR's most exciting drivers, that's the Corning Moose Lodge, 274. That's 96 Victory Highway in Payne and Post. Wow, that is a congratulations, by the way, to the Moose Lodge for getting this huge, famous, renowned NASCAR driver Ross Chastain to visit. So again, that is Saturday, 6:30, 7:30. We will continue to bring that up. Kudos to the Moose Lodge. All right, so there's your breaking story from this morning locally. One very exciting, one very disappointing. The exciting, of course, Ross Chastain visiting the Moose Lodge this Saturday. Disappointing that the county has filed their appeal. This did not happen yesterday. It was the day before, late the day before, so that is why you're hearing it here for the first time and hearing it anywhere for the first time. Let's just because we're going all over the place this morning. This isn't an update, and then we'll have updates in a second. But I had not heard about this, and I'm not sure if anybody's following this. Do you remember, since we're talking athletes, remember Conor McGregor, the biggest name in UFC for a while, and then he fought Floyd Mayweather, in that, whatever you think about it, but I guess you could call it a boxing match. Conor McGregor is going to move forward with his presidential bid in Ireland, despite the polls not looking great for him. Shortly after meeting with President Trump back in March, the former UFC championship. All right, Mediaite. The former UFC champion first announced his intention to run for president in his home country. In a lengthy tweet, McGregor pointed to an immigration bill proposed by the European Union and promised to fight it. In the wake of that announcement, Irish publications were quick to explain why McGregor's presidential aspirations were virtually impossible. For starters, Irish law requires a nomination from 20 members of the Irish Assembly. I'm not going to even try to pronounce it. For a candidate to appear on the ballot. A March survey of Irish councillors revealed McGregor had almost no support among elected officials. Additionally, a poll conducted after his announcement showed just 7% of respondents said they're for him. Undeterred, he said to the esteemed citizens of Ireland and the Irish diaspora, I, Conor McGregor, hereby declare my intention to seek the esteemed office of President of Ireland. The current constitutional framework, however, presents a significant barrier to democratic participation. The existing regulations mandate that a candidate must secure nominations from either 20 members of that group, I'll try it, or catas, or 4 county councils to be eligible for the ballot. This system, while intended to ensure a degree of political influence among candidates, inadvertently restricts the direct voice of the Irish electorate. In light of this, I propose a petition advocating for a modification of the nomination process to allow my name to be included on the ballot. I contend that the citizens of Ireland, both at home and abroad, should have the unhindered right to determine the candidates who appear on the presidential ballot. Therefore, I implore you to join me in this endeavor by signing this petition. Your support will be instrumental in championing a more inclusive and democratic electorate process, thereby empowering the people of Ireland to shape their own future. Sign my petition now to save Ireland. Why not start with that, right? Hey, in actual breaking news, other than the local breaking news that we had for you, and we'll continue to repeat all this morning, the feds are investigating Senator Adam Schiff for alleged mortgage fraud after the DOJ criminal referral. Schiff is reportedly under federal investigation for alleged mortgage fraud after a federal housing agency sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department in May regarding the California Democrats' ownership of a Maryland home. Now, he's playing this off as Trump's always suggested that he was going to use lawfare, which is ironic when Democrats start talking about using lawfare. It's very, very much in line, and ironic's not the right word, hypocritical. It's very much in line with what we're seeing with the redistricting. The irony of those Texas Democrats going to Illinois, which is kind of the poster child for gerrymandering, speaks volumes. We'll put it that way. But the hypocrisy here, and we see Governor Hochul thinking she's found her footing to be a member of the resistance. Her big term, and your thoughts on this, all's fair in love and war. She keeps using this. She wrote an op-ed for some newspaper in Texas. We're going to talk about it later on in the program. But the weirdness of that to me, I don't know what it is about Governor Hochul, and it's not to be petty or it's not just to be looking for kind of the minutia to criticize. It really, everything falls flat when she tries to hit a home run to me. But that, I digress. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland is leading the probe against Schiff, which could result in charges against a junior senator from California and former 12-term congressman. Wow, he was in there 12 terms. The DOJ, Maryland U.S. Attorney's Office, and Schiff did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Polt sent a referral letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche on May 27th, detailing multiple instances between 2003 and 2019 where Schiff allegedly falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms, impacting payments for property he owns in Potomac, one of the most affluent Washington, D.C. suburbs. Schiff listed the Maryland home as his primary residence in several mortgage refinancing filings between 2009 and 2013, despite being an elected official representing the Golden State and having taken out a homeowner's tax exemption on a Burbank, California condo he purchased, which he also claimed as his primary residence over the same period of time. Schiff and his wife did not list the Potomac property as a secondary resident until 2020. Quote, Mr. Schiff appears to have falsified records in order to receive favorable loan terms and also appears to have been aware of the financial benefits of a primary residence mortgage when compared to a secondary resident mortgage, as a spokesperson in 2023 told the media outlet CNN. The Adams, California and Maryland addresses have been listed as primary residence for loan purposes because they are both occupied throughout the year and to distinguish them from a vacation property. Schiff may have violated federal laws against wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, and making false statements to financial institutions. Now, Schiff has denied any wrongdoing on Twitter messages, saying, since I led his first impeachment, Trump has repeatedly called for me to be arrested for treason. So in a way, I guess this is a bit of a letdown. And this baseless attempt at political retribution won't stop me from holding him accountable, not by a long shot. This is just Donald Trump's latest attempts at political retaliation against his perceived enemies. So it's not a surprise only how weak this false allegation turns out to be. And much as Trump may hope, the smear will not distract from the Epstein files problem. This was written quite a while ago. A spokesman for Schiff noted that at the time, the lenders who provided the mortgages for both homes were well aware of then Representative Schiff's congressional service and of his intended year-round use of both houses, neither of which were vacation homes. So the feds are investigating Adam Schiff for that alleged mortgage fraud. So that is an update. We've got a few other updates, then we're going to get into redistricting. Again, the breaking story this morning, if you are just joining us, Steuben County has filed the appeal against the decision that vindicated the sheriff. Completely vindicated the sheriff. Not sure why tax dollars are going to this. If you have a thought or a theory on that, I would love to hear from you. It seems like a huge waste of money. Again, as I said, back in December of 2024, I reported that taxpayers had already been on the hook well over $200,000 to go after the sheriff, to take away his identification, to really try to run him through the mud in some way, which did not work. People saw right through it. And so now we have a scenario where when he was completely vindicated, when he was completely found in the right, and the county was chastised by the Supreme Court in some pretty strong language, they are appealing that strong language, I guess. Still a confusion as to what they're actually appealing, but yes, they are appealing it. So that's where we're at. We're going to read your comments. Hey, thank you for the waves coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And we're already running late, but we have some great comments to read from viewers. Let's get right to it. Regarding Hochul, says a viewer, I am thinking that she does not come across very well because her lips say one thing, but her eyes and facial expressions seem to contradict what she says. She does not have a lot of confidence either, even though she acts as if she does. You know, you hit the nail on the head. There's that awkwardness of her trying to be forceful or trying to be aggressive. And it does come off as someone that's doing it in a nervous way, or to your point, a lack of confidence in what she's saying. I think you're spot on with that. Maybe that's why she comes across as disingenuous, and maybe that's the problem that I'm having with it. That she's, I know someone laughed at me when I said this before, but kind of Johnny try hard, that she's trying just a little bit too hard by half, and it just comes off as fake and phony to me. So it's not to just, again, be petty or nitpick, but it does come off to me as very, very awkward. That's all. And I would feel the same way, I think, just because of how hard she tries. I think I'd feel the same way no matter if it was a Republican or Democrat. Okay. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Thank you. Excellent quote from Karen. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Karen. If you're just tuning in, Karen sent in the great quote from Mark Twain. Sometimes I wonder whether the world is being run by smart people who are putting us on or by imbeciles who really mean it. And that is a great quote and perfect to today's climate. Okay, comment from a different viewer. Steuben County is appealing? Who are we talking about? Who is responsible for initiating the appeal? We are going to get all that. This is as breaking news as you can get, folks. We are going to get all that information tomorrow. The reason that is because we're going to be talking with Sheriff Allard, who will have all the information, I'm sure, to pass along to you, because obviously it directly affects him without any question, to just put him through that. But also to put the taxpayers through this. I can't comprehend the reasoning. I can't even understand, and I've asked a lot of quote-unquote experts what the appeal is really even about. What are you appealing? There's no financial loss there. The county was basically strongly reprimanded for legitimate reasons. Number one, going after the sheriff in bad faith. Number two, going into executive session. If you recall at the time, when the story broke that they were trying to take away his You would think after 2 years I'd be better at this. Indemnification, going after him in this very public way. We were confused when it first broke because we had heard nothing about it. Why was that? Because everything was done in executive session. So we, the taxpayers, had no knowledge of this whatsoever. So when it got to the New York State Supreme Court, they said, you got to cut back on executive sessions. This is wrong. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. And trust me, they're using a lot stronger language than I am using here. Really went after him. And they said that none of this was done in good faith. So you're appealing and hoping they're going to say, well, I guess it was done in good faith. Again, I'm not playing dumb. I am dumb. No, I really don't understand it. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. You got to be kidding me. When are they going to leave Sheriff Allard alone? Totally ridiculous. I agree. And if you look, if nothing else, I talk about PR probably too often here. We talked about it with Pam Bondi and Epstein. We've talked about it so many times. But just the optics of things. You have arguably, I think it's an easy argument to make, the most popular elected official in Steuben County. Now, there's some maneuvering there. You could argue here or there a little bit, but I think it's pretty safe to say Sheriff Allard, the most popular elected official in Steuben County, going after him in a PR sense, not the best move. If you don't care about PR and you're saying that I'm going to do this for X, Y, or Z, explain to us, again, what the X, Y, and Z is, because we have yet to, I think, be fully informed on that. And definitely we have not been fully informed on what this appeal is appealing. I have yet to see any kind of press release or any kind of statement. But this is very, very breaking news. And that's why you always need to tune into Frankly Speaking if you want to get the latest information first. And yes, you'll probably see it soon after the program as people from the competition tune in and see the breaking story that we had here on this program. But know where you heard it first. All right. A couple other quick updates before I take a break, because, yes, I'm just running long. Yesterday, I think it was Mark, as a matter of fact. Mark, speaking of him, who just sent in a great comment, mentioned about the special envoy with Putin and Russia and Ukraine. Well, the Trump administration is giving Russian President Vladimir Putin one more chance to show he's serious about ending his 41-month-old invasion of Ukraine. As more than 6 months have passed with no diplomatic process, well-placed sources tell the New York Post Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has been encouraged to take a sterner approach with Moscow's leader ahead of Wednesday's make-or-break meeting. Yes, today's make-or-break meeting. In line with President Trump's recent expressions of disgust at Putin's continued attacks on Ukraine civilians. Whether Witkoff will take that advice remains unclear, of course. A spokesperson for the special envoy declined to comment on the record for the story. Meanwhile, the White House National Security Team responsible for the Ukraine war held multiple meetings on Tuesday trying to work out how Washington might best persuade Russia to silence its guns. Trump himself said Tuesday he would wait to see how the sit-down went before making a final decision on whether to enact secondary sanctions and slapping more tariffs on countries that provide Russia with its main source of income, oil purchases. The president said, we're having a meeting with Russia tomorrow. We're going to see what happens. We'll make a determination at that time. I never set a percentage, but we'll be doing quite a bit of that. We'll see what happens over the next fairly short period of time. Now, a source familiar with discussions insisted the sanctions are not inevitable when Trump's deadline is reached on Friday, saying the administration is pushing hard for a deal that always is the president's preferred outcome. As part of PrEP, Witkoff has been briefed on the historical motivations behind Putin's war on Ukraine, namely his desire to reconstitute as much of the former Soviet Union as possible. So there you are. There's an update from a story we kind of not glanced over yesterday, but didn't really have a chance to read in depth. More updates when we come back, and we are going to talk about redistricting. If you are just joining us, the county did file their appeal, not yesterday, the day before, late the day before, in that back and forth, really only one direction against the sheriff by the county. As of last report, we were about $250,000 spent in taxpayers' money. Still not understanding where the savings would come if that was originally allowed, for lack of a better word. I know it gets a little bit wonky, a little bit legalese, so it's tough to do off the cuff. But I think you've all been great in keeping updated with it because we've had the sheriff on so many times. So that is the breaking story this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. As always, we thank our good friends at Boss Security for bringing us that beautiful view of historic Market Street with the Frankly Speaking roof cam. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We always thank all of our amazing sponsors that bring us Frankly Speaking so that we can break stories like the Steuben County, filing their appeal in that ongoing back and forth with Sheriff Allard, which led one viewer to write in, "This appeal is outrageous. What can we do? It's disgusting that our tax dollars are funding something like this. I thought this was a done deal. What is the bigger picture here we're not seeing?" To me, it just seems like a pettiness at this point against the sheriff, an anger against some anger against the sheriff. But I can't think of anything else it would be because it's not a monetary issue. Well, I mean, it is because we're spending so much money as taxpayers, but I don't see it as a monetary issue in the sense that the Supreme Court didn't say, okay, you owe Allard this much or this much. It was all, they didn't like the language is the best I can boil it down to, which to me isn't justification of spending tax dollars. We'll have more information because, again, you're definitely going to want to set your alarm tomorrow. So the sheriff's going to be in right around 7 o'clock. So do not miss it because we'll have more information. Obviously, this appeal relates to him, so he'll have a lot more information than we have as of right now. Comment from we'll get to that in a moment. Well, what's this? Okay, so someone wrote in from sending me a screenshot. Couldn't think of the word, from Fox News. Mamadani-style activist, liberal incumbent, advance to Seattle mayoral runoff. Pundits have compared Wilson to socialist NYC mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani, and that led this viewer to say, "Frank, this is what I first woke up to. This day is full of good news so far. Think I'm going back to bed." Don't go back to bed. Not till 8 o'clock, please. You don't want to miss the rest of Frankly Speaking. Then do whatever you want. Okay. Vice President J.D. Vance. Yesterday we had the story, and I think this is one of those things where the media tries to kind of plant these seeds, but get some infighting going. But Marco Rubio looks like a real contender and could be Vance's major opposition to the White House, this kind of thing. And we talked yesterday, and I think most people, not that a lot of people commented on it because it's so far out and it was just kind of a one-off question. Most people seem to like Vance, though they like Rubio as well, but the Vance seems to be the favorite. That's what President Trump said yesterday as well. Trump was at the South Court Auditorium where he signed an executive order to create a 2028 Los Angeles Olympics task force. When Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy asked him if Vance was likely to become the face of the Make America Great Again movement, after noting the president said he wouldn't be running for a third term. "You could clear the entire Republican field right now," Ducey said. "Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance?" Trump said, "Well, I think most likely. In all fairness, he's the vice president. And I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with JD in some form. I also think we have incredible people, some of the people on the stage right here. So it's too early, obviously, to talk about it. But certainly he's doing a great job, and he would be probably favored at this point." I would think he'd be favored. And the situation is, and a lot of people like Rubio. Rubio, I think, and you could disagree with me, I think if they were to team up, kind of like what Trump signaled there, be a great team, but it would have to be Vance, president, Rubio, vice president. Even though if you say, well, Rubio's getting all this experience, maybe he's got more experience. The problem with that is I don't think you can run for VP in another presidential run. I think the awkwardness or kind of the, well, again, to use the term, the optics of that may not look well. May not go well. All right, so I just wanted to update you from that yesterday. Do I have time for another update? Boy, we're running late this morning. We have 4 updates, and then we're going to get to redistricting. I know redistricting is a major story in the news. Kind of the hypocrisy of the Democrats criticizing the redistricting in Texas when they've gerrymandered in so many states, right here in New York as well, where they were twice chastised, I guess is the word of the day, by the courts and forced to redraw. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. But we got to play a little catch up. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We've, like I said, 3 or 4 updates from the last few programs, then redistricting. So stay with us. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Just a thought regarding the view of Market Street. Oh, the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to us by Boss Security. Yes. I think it would be interesting if your team could put together a compressed year-long photo of the trees as they bloom and lose their leaves. Well, first of all, a big thank you for suggesting that I have a team. I must be doing a very good job here. I can ask the team, hey, Frank, are you interested in putting together that compressed year-long picture of trees? I can try. But no, I do appreciate that. We have a great news team upstairs, and we got a great staff. But no, when it comes to Frankly Speaking, it's kind of a one-man wrecking crew, if you will. So I will see what I can do. I know I tried when we first got it, and I would say the one downside is, even if you just do it for a split second each day, it does get pretty lengthy. But it's a great idea, so I'll take a look at that. Thank you. Just to kind of prove our point here, and as I said, I'm going to go through a couple of quick updates from shows we've had in the past. Betsy McKay writes for the New York Post, and it ties into what we talked about in this program so many times and kind of validates what we've been saying. From the river to the sea is shorthand for the obliteration of Israel. It's a phrase meant to terrorize. Here in the United States, from the Hudson River to the Pacific, anti-Semitism is surging in public schools. As President Trump cracks down on the abuse of Jewish students on college campuses, he needs to turn his attention also to our elementary and high schools, and people of all faiths must stand up to object. Jews shouldn't have to fight this battle alone. They give specifics of these attacks on Jewish students, whether it's something like taunting or anti-Semitic graffiti or overall harassment, violence. She does a great job with this. So I would say that opening couple of lines sounds like she's been watching this program, because we've talked about it, that it's not just on college campuses. We do ourselves a disservice if we think it is just on college campuses. And this is what it says. The rank and file public school teachers across the nation are on board with this hate. Members of the nation's largest teachers union, the National Education Association, voted in July to redefine the Holocaust with language that erased any mention of the extermination of 6 million Jews. The woke definition instead recognizes, quote, more than 12 million victims from different faiths, political beliefs, genders, and gender identification, abilities, disabilities, and other targeted characteristics. That's a hateful falsehood and a twisting of history. NEA members also voted to educate students about the Nakba. In the union's words, the forced violent displacement and dispossession of at least 750,000 Palestinians from their homeland in 1948 during the establishment of the State of Israel. Both those measures were included in the NEA handbook, a document recently removed from the union's website after it sparked such blowback. But it's what a majority of NEA members, teachers in public schools, voted for. A generation of college students steeped in anti-Semitism by leftist professors is bringing the same hate to the public schools where they now teach. Teachers' unions bear a share of the blame too. Again, going through some of these examples that we just don't have time for, but the union and their complicity, or in some cases, active participation in these anti-Semitic protests. Mamdani, it does tie in with Mamdani, has expressed almost no interest in education policy aside from attacking the city's specialized high schools, even though the Department of Education consumes more money than any other city agency. Indifferent to what education means to parents striving for their children's futures, Mamdani has cynically suggested that Jamal Bowman, the Israel-hating former congressman and fire alarm enthusiast, should lead Gotham's public school system, the largest in America. Even members of his own party are unimpressed by Bowman. State Democrat Party Chairman Jay Jacobs has said the ex-lawmaker should promote, quote, the economic interests of working-class Americans instead of continuing his anti-Semitic pro-terrorist advocacy. Don't count on Bowman or Mamdani to heed that advice. It's time for New Yorkers and Americans everywhere to oppose anti-Semitism in our public schools. History's oldest hatred has no place in our kids' classrooms. Now, Betsy McKay is the former lieutenant governor of New York, and I thought it's like she's been watching this program, and I just thought that was so spot on, that it's not just on college campuses. And unfortunately, because of the decisions by the NEA, and you know you've done a bad job, you know you've done something wrong, not that they're going to back away from it, but when they have to take their handbook down off the website because it receives so much blowback. They raise a good point. The kids that were taught and indoctrinated with that propaganda, that anti-Semitic propaganda in college, are now teaching themselves, and meaning they're in the education system. They're teaching these students that same hate that they learned on college campuses. All right, also quickly, no way to segue. Elon Musk is officially the most unpopular public figure in America, according to a new poll. Gallup asking Americans between July 7th and July 21st what they thought of 14 well-known U.S. and global figures, with 61% of respondents having an unfavorable opinion of the Tesla billionaire. 6% said they had no opinion of Musk, while just 33% reported a positive view. AOC, she was underwater. I'm just looking at some of the names here. She was underwater at -4. Robert F. Kennedy, -5. Biden, -11. Vance, -11. Where's Trump? -16, according to Gallup. But Musk, -28, right ahead of Benjamin Netanyahu at -23. Well, this is interesting. Marco Rubio at -16, kind of tied with Donald Trump there, with Vance only -11. Whatever that's worth. We don't trust polls here, but I still report on them. Republicans, I have received some difference of opinion through the last few months on this issue as I brought it up, and I would love to hear your take on it. My thought has been, and people have disagreed, that Republicans should not be holding, in today's climate, town halls, meaning your congress member, senator, should not be holding town halls. And the reason for that is twofold. One, I think it puts their staff and themselves in a real safety issue. As we've seen so many attacks on politicians, so many threats, even right here in our district. We have story after story of Congressman Nick Langworthy him and his staff receiving threats to their offices. So my thought is the safety of the representative and their staff. They should not hold these. I also don't believe that town halls are done in good faith. The people that are demanding them don't actually want to hear from their representative. They want to shout and scream and yell at them. Right? They don't want to have the conversation, which is what the town halls are about. And just to add a third level to that, if a Republican does that, they will be essentially criticized for holding the town hall in a weird way. The media, well, no, I shouldn't word it that way. They will be attacked by the media. What they'll do is, and here, well, I don't even have to fake the headline. The AP writes, Republican Flood, his name's Mike Flood, Representative Mike Flood, but this is the headline. Republican Flood jeered over Trump tax bill at Nebraska town hall. Representative Mike Flood has gotten an earful during a public meeting in Lincoln aimed at discussing his support for the massive tax breaks and spending cuts bill passed by Congress and signed into law by President Trump. Flood, a second-term Republican who represents a GOP-leaning district that includes the University of Nebraska, braved the ire of a college town audience dominated by hundreds of people intent on expressing their displeasure, chiefly with cuts to Medicaid benefits and tax reductions tilted towards the wealthy. He described the law as less than perfect, but stood firm on its Medicaid and tax provisions, fueling a 90-minute barrage of jeers and chants, and a scenario House Republican leaders have advised GOP members to avoid. Yes, because now the media is using this as if his GOP leaning district, now everybody hates Trump and everybody hates Trump's big, beautiful bill. So it's now used as a bad PR thing for a man who they've demanded, or any representative really, they demanded hold town halls, and then you do hold a town hall, and they use that as a negative to try to attack you, try to get you unelected, or not reelected, and try to attack the president at the same time. It's a fool's errand. You're making a mistake if you, and I'm not criticizing Mr. Flood. I don't know Mr. Flood. I'm just saying right now is not the climate for this. You will be used as a political tool by the left to suggest that everybody hates Trump. Never mind the safety issue. And you're not having a conversation. You're not getting your message out there. These people are just yelling, booing, and jeering. So much so, this is how much you're used if you do a town hall. This is the reward you get if you do a town hall. Now, again, I think if these people are coming in saying, we want a town hall, an in-person town hall with our representative, and they want to have a conversation and listen and learn and, have even disagree, but do so in a respectful way, yeah, I'd be all for it. I helped plan town halls for representatives. So I have no issue with town hall. In this scenario, it is not done in good faith. And again, to show how you can be used as a political tool if you do so, this is on CNN's News Central. Former advisor to Bill Clinton, Paul Begala, was asked by John Berman, tensions erupting at lawmakers' town hall. With the House on summer recess, many members are back home meeting with constituents. For Nebraska Republican Mike Flood, things got a little testy last night, early and often, as he defended President Trump's policies. So he played a clip and he said, Paul, what do you see in that town hall? There's the softball. There's one right over the plate. Ready? Bagala said, remember last week there was a terrible earthquake off the coast of Russia. And it took a long time before tsunami waves hit. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. This is an earthquake that is coming. The Republicans are looking at a wave election. This is what happened the last time, 2017. They cut taxes for the rich and tried to end Obamacare, and they failed. They lost 41 House seats in the next election. This combination of this bill, where they cut taxes for the rich, exploded the debt, and cut health care for working people. That's not going to fly, man. That's just not. So cool, Begala. 454 days away. That is a long time, but I'm telling you, it's going to be a 40-seat landslide. And the Republicans in Congress, I think, know it. So that's the reward you get for having a town hall. You become a tool for people like Bagala to make these, and he's been wrong so many times, especially this far out. Are you kidding me? But at the same time, there is in a quick nutshell why I'm willing to defend my position of not holding in-person town halls. Okay, now we've got to take a break. Again, if you are just joining us, a breaking story this morning, hearing it here first on Frankly Speaking, Steuben County has filed an appeal in that case with the sheriff, with that back and forth with the sheriff. Very frustrating. I think many people out there have expressed that frustration on the program this morning, that more taxpayer dollars being wasted in a what just looks like a petty fight against the sheriff. Some type of anger against the sheriff from some, not all of the legislature, we got to make clear about that, but some of the legislature. We are going to have the sheriff on tomorrow at 7 o'clock to learn more about this. It was even voted against by the legislature the second time around. Not all legislators, some legislators did vote for it, for the appeal, but now there was speculation that there could be an appeal. Nothing happened. It kind of died down. We asked the sheriff about it. We hadn't heard anything. And I received a tip yesterday that the county has filed the appeal. Okay, let's take that break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Yes, we are running. Man, we're having a blast this morning, but we are running late. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We're having a blast this morning on Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple of viewer comments, shall we? I saw a clip from the Nebraska Town Hall. So a handful of paid disruptors were there to give the illusion that they want of what they want the public to see. And that's what the media chooses to use. It's an act. Again, we're on the same page. You and I are not disagreeing on that. It's all set up. And even if you put up, let's say there are, I don't care what district you go into, even a heavily Republican district like the 23rd, there's always going to be, obviously, people that don't like Trump, the people that don't like Republicans that voted Democrat. So they're going to be the ones that attend. If you're a Republican, you like where things are going. Are you going to go out on a Thursday night after you worked all day and sit at the town hall? No, probably not. There'll be a few. But the people that are going to be there are the quote-unquote agitators. All right, this next one got me laughing hard. And I don't know. I can't think of an answer off the top of my head. But good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I know that you're good at answering questions. Well, thank you. So let's try a new segment. We'll borrow a term from Dear Abby. No pressure. But your broadcasting future is dependent on how well you answer this question. Well, now the pressure is on. Here we go. Dear Frank, I have a recently retired Facebook friend whose main focus is to share how much she hates Trump. Some of her posts are even made at 2 a.m. If I engage in her conversations, I'll be publicly stoned or tied to the railroad tracks. How can I help her? Signed, Concerned, but not tired of winning. I love that name. What was the line? You know that John Prine? You remember John Prine, who passed away during COVID? He had a song about Dear Abby, and his the line was his. What was it? It was like, stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. That was his answer in the song. I would say I'm the wrong person to ask about this, and I hope that my broadcasting future isn't dependent on it. The reason I say I'm a bad person to talk about this, I'm not the biggest social media user. I know my rule was in the past that, you know, if there's a comment asking a question or something about promoting an interview or something like that, I would definitely respond or try to respond. But negative, I never saw an upside to it, right? And I definitely never saw an upside to someone who just posted randomly to a wall and said, here at 2 a.m., I hate Trump. But my argument always was, and it was a little bit of bluster here to kind of knock someone down a peg in a way, because people sometimes would tag me and say, what do you think about this, Frank? And I would say, I'm not going to waste my time on social media because I get paid to talk about this on the air. So that was kind of my bluster to kind of knock it down a peg. I don't really feel that way. I just didn't want to respond. So I would say weigh the pros and the cons. I know you want to help your friend, you want to save your friend, but I'm guessing if they're making anti-Trump posts at 2 a.m., there's probably no turning back for that person. I mean, imagine, you've been watching the media, you didn't like Trump to begin with, you've been watching the media for all these years, for the first 4 years, in between, and now what we're seeing, it's not as if they're going to stop that hate. It's only fomenting the hate. The media and politicians like Jasmine Crockett, so many others, she's the first one that pops into my head, are fomenting this hate. They are pushing, with very nasty rhetoric, pushing this hate towards Trump. So this person, no matter what you put on a comment on Facebook, you're never going to change your mind. It doesn't matter how eloquent your statement is, never going to change your mind. My suggestion would be to ignore it. Try to ignore those conversations if you see it in person. Because, I mean, you're not tired of winning, but they're probably pretty tired of losing, right? So they're not going to switch. Unfortunately, I know you're probably concerned about the Trump derangement syndrome. I get it, but that's why it's been given that name, right? I would also, when I say weigh the pros and cons, if this person is posting that and you look and see that maybe 1, 2, 3 people liked it, maybe a few people commented because it is politically charged, is that worth it? Now, if all of a sudden you go on your friend's Facebook page and there's 20,000 likes and 50,000 comments, maybe then you say, well, this person's got some cred. They're actually an influencer at this point. Maybe then you take the chance, but is it worth being tied to the railroad stakes, the railroad tracks, and be publicly stoned to comment on something that probably is going to be forgotten about 2 days from now? Just something, I don't know. I hope I did good. Let me know. If not, I'll take myself off the air. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate the comment. Hope I did a good job. I've never been put in the position of being Dear Abby before, but I kind of got drunk on power there. I felt so good being Dear Abby for a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox wrapping up hour number 1 after this. And it's hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, where we are having a blast this morning. We've got a lot to cover. It feels like we're just getting warmed up. It's one of the shows that could last 4 or 5 hours if we wanted it to, if we could. Let's go to a viewer comment. So if you are just joining us in the 7 o'clock hour, if your alarm just went off, I was tasked with being Dear Abby for a moment, and I responded about Facebook. This viewer writes in, Dear Frank. Oh, in my Frank with A-N added an extra N, so more like Dear Ann. Right? Wasn't there a Dear Ann and Dear Abby? Anyway, Dear Frank, I think that viewer and I have the same friend or former friend in my case. She never misses a chance to hate on Trump. But if I counter her with any questions civilly, I'm just ignored. Yeah, they don't want the civility. There's a back and forth. And you've seen it on both political parties. But, there's some people that kind of like to be the flamethrower in those Facebook scenarios. That's why it just never really interests me, because there never seems to be any great end to it. There's never that was worth it to me. But I know people have a lot of different opinions on social media than I do. But I never saw the real upside to it. But then again, I had a picture of me and Trump as my main photo on Facebook for a while. So I guess maybe you could say the same thing about me. I just don't comment that much. It's just not my thing. All right, comment from a different viewer. Dear Frankly, I like that one. Unfortunately, terminal TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, is not currently curable. My friend from Minnesota is so infected, he dresses in an Uncle Sam outfit and travels the country protesting Trump. Wow. He tries to infect me, so I've just learned to accept his conditions and not stress over it anymore. Yes, I would say there's no sense stress. It's one person, right, at the end of the day. I mean, I know what large movements grow by one person at a time, so I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying at the end of the day, you're not going to convince those people. I don't care how articulate your comment is. It's just not going to happen. I wish we had that secret cure, as that person put, but it's just not there yet. All right, the breaking story. And thank you for all these wonderful comments all over the place, but I love it. So breaking news, again, if you are just tuning in, Steuben County has filed their appeal. We received a tip on this yesterday. They have filed their appeal. We were hoping, because it had been quite quiet for a while, that maybe they had learned their lesson after over $200,000 in taxpayer loss, that they wouldn't go after the sheriff any longer. Instead, they decided to rehash this. And as of yet, I have not seen anybody else report on it. I have not seen any response by the county. It is early in this. This is breaking news. You're definitely hearing this first, right here. And as soon as I got word of this, I reached out to the sheriff to see if he would be on the program. He is going to be on the program tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Now, do I do myself a disservice by giving you this breaking story? Yes, because there could be other outlets that tune in, which I know they do, tune in and hear what I've just said, and they'll beat me to the punch maybe tomorrow, but we got them first with this breaking story that the Steuben County has filed their appeal. Again, you can ask me a million times, what are they appealing? I don't know. The New York State Supreme Court came back and told the county that their attack on Allard was not done in good faith, that they shouldn't be having the executive sessions in the way that they are. They were reprimanded. They were chastised, to put it lightly. It was strongly worded by the Supreme Court. So I don't know what they're appealing, unless they're appealing the language. And I mean, it's not like they're going to change bad faith to good faith. That it was done in bad faith. It was, no, we'll change it. I really don't understand why we're using taxpayer dollars, especially when, in an unfortunately very close vote, the appeal was going forward with the appeal was voted down by the legislature, but because of some of the names involved, that there's other people allegedly, which I don't even think that makes sense, but because certain names were allowed or were mentioned in the case, that they could just go it on their own, but go it on their own, not with their money, with our money. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. I know you've all been following it very closely if you watch Frankly Speaking. So I know you're very disappointed this morning to hear that Steuben County has filed their appeal. And yet, in what could be just deemed as yet another kind of petty attack against the sheriff, with I see no upside. That's a personal opinion. I see no upside in wasting tax dollars at this point, or to begin with, to try to take away his indemnification, to go after him in these ways, unprecedented ways, for a man that I think most people have said numerous times on this program does a wonderful job, and I think the voters prove that in the vote count. And just if we did favorability ratings around here, I know I said it earlier. I'm not just saying this. I'm not saying it. I'll say it today. I won't mention it when when Sheriff Eller's on the program tomorrow. But arguably the most popular, easy argument, popular elected official in Steuben County. So still don't understand it. And as I said earlier in the 6 o'clock hour, in the last report I did on it for WYDCTV.com back in December, the number at that time was $200,000 in taxpayers' money being spent in this case, if you will, against the sheriff. That's a breaking story on a completely different breaking story, receiving this late yesterday. And I want to bring it to you because we have, and I know sometimes we have different viewers from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. If you're one of the people that stay on for both hours, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody that watches. But I know sometimes you have to hear repeat stories, but this is such a big story, and it's such a huge win for our friends at the Corning Moose Lodge that do so much great work for our community. That fundraiser that was held for the Salvation Army of Corning, we still talk about it. It was wonderful. Not just to mention the food, but just such a fun event. And they hold such fun events that they do so much for the community that this is a big win and a much deserved win. They are going to have on Saturday an opportunity for you to meet NASCAR driver Ross Chastain. He is visiting the Moose Lodge on Saturday from 6:30 till 7:30 p.m. So here's what you can expect. You meet Ross Chastain in person. You get your favorite memorabilia signed during the autograph session, and you take photos and create lasting memories. But what they're saying is please arrive early, as the event is expected to draw a very, very large crowd. Bring your favorite items for Ross to autograph, and don't forget your camera for pictures. This is going to be unforgettable. This is going to be really, like they said, lasting memories for you and your family. And also just as a bonus, you get there, you stand in line, and the Moose Lodge is going to have food available for purchase, so you can get the great food that the Moose Lodge offers. And let me tell you, never had a bad meal there. Always amazing. Just the hot dog, the Wienerville fundraiser they did for the Salvation Army. I still think about that. I haven't had a hot dog that good in a long time. But it's at Corning Moose Lodge, 274-96 Victory Highway in Payne and Post. That's what I just read. I forgot to put it up on the screen. But there's what you need to know. Don't miss it, especially for all our big NASCAR fans that are out there that maybe aren't able to go to the track this weekend or just going to go to the track on Sunday. Well, spend your Saturday at the Moose Lodge and meet Ross Chastain from 6:30 till 7:30 p.m. So there are our breaking stories. Feel free to weigh in on any of the topics of the day, but let's go to redistricting, shall we? So our governor, Kathy Hochul, did an op-ed that I think is worth mentioning to you. This is in the Houston Chronicle. So she decided to write to the people of Texas saying, up until now, Democrats have treated our political system like it's still governed by norms, guarded by limits, and rooted in fairness. Rules were meant to be followed. It hurts to say, but that era has come to an end. So trying to make herself the face of the resistance, she's throwing out all the norms because she believes all the norms have been thrown out. Can you wade through this hypocrisy for me, this irony and all this? Or irony is not a strong enough word. This is like with the redistricting where she said that redistricting is wrong. So you know what we're going to do? We are going to redistrict. But taking a step back, remember, she comes from the state. She's the governor of the state of Letitia James and Alvin Bragg. So do we want to really talk about the norms being thrown out? Do we want to talk about guarded by limits and rooted in fairness? Was the law fair? Was that fair against then candidate Trump, trying to keep him off the ballot, trying to bankrupt him, trying to make him a felon, arrest him? I mean, the list goes on and on. So the Democrats, in Kathy Hochul's mind, I want to reread that for you and see what you think. Democrats have treated our political system like it's governed by norms, guarded by limits and rooted in fairness. Rules were meant to be followed. It hurts to say, but that era has come to an end. So yes, I've already spent 3 minutes on the opening line, so it's only going to go downhill from here. Since Donald Trump's rise, Republicans have declared war on the American people. They slashed healthcare, gutted nutrition programs, and stacked the Supreme Court to rip away freedoms we once took for granted. And now they're trying to rig the rules of democracy itself. Okay, so we can talk about trying to keep Trump off the ballot, which I've already mentioned. If we want to talk about democracy, how did the last presidential election go when it comes to who you got to pick as your Democrat nominee? Was that democracy? I mean, to suggest that they're the defenders of democracy when we've seen so many attacks on the right for Republicans to vote for who they choose, right? And we continue. I can see myself going on a lot of tangents, so I better be quick here. At President Trump's direction, Texas State House Republicans are attempting to redraw their congressional maps mid-decade, an aggressive power grab designed to flip as many as 5 current Democrat seats. They've carved up diverse communities in Houston, Dallas, and along the border to silence the voters who live there. What Texas is doing isn't a clever strategy. It's political arson, torching our democracy to cling to power. The only viable recourse is to fight fire with fire. Now, we know yesterday that was the word of the day, or the statement of the day, fire for fire, fire with fire. It wasn't just her. Hakeem Jeffries said it. I'm trying to think who else said it. But this isn't just a Texas issue. When Republicans rig congressional maps in one state, it weakens representation in every state. Every unfair seat they create tilts Congress further out of balance. If they get away with it now, 2026 will be the first of many stolen elections. Okay, so now we're talking about election denial. Before a single vote has been cast in 2026. I'd also ask, when you're redistricting, the last go-round got thrown out by the courts twice. Was your gerrymandering, was that going to affect the congressional maps in every state? That it was going to tilt the balance? That it was going to be the threat and the end of democracy? So Hochul continues, I may be governor of New York. Hopefully not for long. Hopefully at least Stefanik gets in there. But I will not sit on the sidelines with timid souls and merely watch while Republicans dismantle democracy. That's not who we are. And that is certainly not the leadership that this moment calls for. Ooh, she's the leader that this moment calls for, folks. Yeah, Stefanik is right. When I read this, I know you're probably getting mad at me reading her word for word. When I read this, and as I joked earlier, not joked, but I hope that she's not governor for long. I hope at least Stefanik beats her next year. Stefanik said she believes the Hochul's eyeing 2028. Well, if she's showing the leadership that's needed at this moment, that makes her the leader. Do you think she's looking at 2028? We'll continue. That's why I was proud to host Texas House Democrats this week. These public servants left the state to follow a legitimate and legal tactic to deny Republicans a quorum and stop this scheme in its track. As John Lewis said, sometimes you have to get into good trouble. That's what they're doing, and they're not alone. Before our meeting in the New York State Capitol, I invited the delegation members to the governor's residence, a home once occupied by former Governor Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I wanted them to draw strength from his example. He led this nation through some of its darkest days. Like FDR, we know who we're fighting for and who we're fighting against. Because this fight isn't about maps, it's about values, fairness, freedom, representation, the very essence of our republic. Wasn't she also the governor that wasn't going to hold a special election if Elise Stefanik was ultimately given that UN position when she talks about representation? Just out of curiosity. In New York, we've shown what's possible when you expand access to ballots instead of suppressing it. I signed the, wow, she is running. She's writing this in, she's touting her record in Texas, folks. I signed the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act in 2022, the strongest law of its kind in the nation. I expanded voter registration and implemented early voting by mail. When Democrats lead, democracy gets stronger. But we can't do it alone. That's why I'm in close touch with House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries and others working on how states can coordinate legal, legislative, and constitutional strategies to fight back. We are also reviewing every legal and legislative option to redraw our own maps in New York. Yeah, because nothing says I hate gerrymandering more than gerrymandering, right? Nothing says I'm against breaking the norms more than breaking the norms. The hypocrisy in this. Okay. We are also reviewing every legal and legislative option to redraw our own maps in New York. If Republicans are changing the rules, we'll meet them on the same field, with strategy, with resolve, and without apology. Some will say this is too aggressive. I say it's necessary. What Texas Republicans are doing under Trump's direction is nothing short of a legal insurrection on our Capitol. But using a legal system doesn't make it legitimate. It's a hijacking of democracy, and it must be stopped. A news flash for Texas Republicans. This is not the Wild West. We will not be bystanders as our democracy is stolen in a modern-day stagecoach heist. This is what I mean. I fundamentally believe that while Texans, talk about pandering to Texans, by the way. I fundamentally believe that while Texans and New Yorkers have our share of differences, we agree on basic fairness. You shouldn't cheat to get ahead, and you must be willing to stand up for the democratic institutions that make this nation so exceptional. Americans are done with the cruelty, chaos, and cowardice that they have witnessed since 2025 began. They're ready to vote Republicans out, and Republicans know it. That's why they're rigging the game before the next whistle blows. But we can't let them get away with it without a fight. Not on my watch. Again, let me quote that. Governor Hochul. Not on my watch. Finally, the leader that we need in her mind. Stefanik's right. If you refuse to fight for democracy, you're doomed to lose it. I didn't get into public service to lose. I got in to fight and to win on behalf of the people I serve. To every Texan standing up to Trump and Abbott's scheme, you're on the right side of history. We're proud to stand with you. To the rest of America, don't be afraid to join this fight. If they rewrite the rules, then so will we. All's fair and love and war. Bring it on. Tough talking. Kathy Hochul. All's fair in love and war. Bring it on. She's showing herself to be the face of the resistance. She's showing herself as, I think in her mind, a candidate for 2028. Keep that in mind, man. Keep that in mind. My goodness. We got to take a break. I can't believe how late we are running. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Just looking at that beautiful view a little longer. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. We've got some viewer comments. Wow, a lot of viewer comments. We're having a fun show this morning. Okay, let's get right to them. First up, as for me, this is in reference to our earlier attempt at Dear Abby. As for me, if someone lets on that they are affected by TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, I immediately write them off and have no further contact with him or her. I do this because I'm not going to change my mind, since I firmly believe that Trump is one of, if not the best president we've ever had, possibly in the entire history of the world. And those who suffer from propaganda syndrome are obviously misled and do not understand what reality is. So therefore, any relevant communications will escalate to possibly even include physical violence. Best to just walk away and avoid any further interactions with these TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, afflicted people. Thank you for that. Wow. Look at all these statements. Okay. Comment from a different viewer. Yeah, Ken. Ken writes in. Hi, Ken. Obviously, Hochul's handlers write her speeches with the intention of trying to keep the low-information sheeple propagandized with the belief that everything Trump or conservatives do is bad and everything Democrats or liberals do is good and righteous. The sad thing is that the sheeple believe what they are told. You raise a good point, Ken. It was something I meant to mention. There's no way she wrote that letter. It was, now I'm not saying she didn't approve it at the end of the day. Obviously she did, but yeah, she did not sit down at her computer and write that out. And if you, doesn't take anybody brilliant to notice that every single thing she said about this continues to use the fight fire with fire, and that all's fair in love and war, and then the whole bring it on. So that's kind of where they start, and then some poor comms person that works for her then has to take those 2 or 3 sentences that she says you have to use and build that letter around it and send it to the Houston Chronicle before someone else beats her to the punch. So a lot of stress on that comms person. Comment from a different viewer. From Mark. Mark writes in, big miss from Hochul, who herself tried to redistrict New York twice and failed. Yeah, big swing and a miss for Hochul, who herself tried to redistrict New York twice and failed. Yeah, the courts overthrew it for being so biased. So, but she's banking on, and she's right, unfortunately, she's banking on the fact that people, especially in Texas, won't remember that. People throughout the country won't remember that, and they won't. But that's why I thought Stefanik's statement yesterday that we read on the air was so powerful, calling her out for that. Comment from a different viewer. Hochul's statement was hilarious. How you read that without cracking up was impressive. Well, thank you. It's not even impressive. It's going kind of back to the Dear Abby thing. It's more about you want to just dissect every single thing that she said for the hypocrisy and the outright lies. All right. Hey, good morning, Sergeant Dave. Sergeant Dave writing in. Good to hear from you. Sergeant Dave writes, there's a great football coach, Bill Belichick, who said to his men, just do your job. The voters of Texas need to tell their Democrat politicians to come back and do their job. Yes, and again, to use the term optics, they're going to states historically known for gerrymandering. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. So this isn't Karen, though, right? But two Karen quotes. If I could reply to Kathy Hochul, quote, the conceit and sanctimony. Oh, is it Karen? If I could reply to Kathy Hochul, the conceit and sanctimony of politicians who believe the world is in need of their talents is endlessly insufferable, said by David Harsani. Wow, that is a perfect yes. I'm sorry. I gotta read that again here because you could not have hit that nail on the head even further. Oh, it is Karen. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see the number there. Thank you, Karen. Two Karen quotes this week, and both perfect. I don't have the other one here in front of me handy, but this could not be said better. It's by David Harsani, and boy, he could be talking directly about Kathy Hochul. The conceit and sanctimony of politicians who believe the world is in need of their talents is endlessly insufferable. Spot on. Thank you very much. And perfect for what Hochul, because how many times did Hochul say, basically, we need her leadership. We need her more than ever. Spot on. Thank you very much. The New York Post editorial board says Governor Hochul is on a mission to prove she can spew blarney with the best. Children are starving, Hochul emoted to Rachel Maddow on Monday. That's why she'll fight fire with fire by redrawing New York's House districts to counteract Texas's redistricting plan, which she calls a declaration of war on the American people, which is hogwash. The governor claims kids are starving because Republicans cut SNAP benefits, food stamps. In fact, the expanded work requirements for some recipients won't kick in until 2027 at the soonest. It's another phony famine. The string of nonstop lies begin with Hochul's pledge in a Houston Chronicle column to save our democracy by gerrymandering New York's congressional map to kill Republican-leaning seats if Texas GOP lawmakers go ahead with their Democrat-reducing plan. So they are going to respond to what she says is just the worst, the threat to democracy of gerrymandering. They're going to respond by gerrymandering. It's like Politico said yesterday in the headline, Hochul in support of gerrymandering. Yet the governor can't get New York redistricted that fast. The state constitution not only explicitly forbids partisan map drawing, it also orders redistricting get done at the turn of the decade. As it is, the state just redrew its maps last year after long court battles prompted by state Democrats' 2021 drive to kill GOP districts, doing exactly what she's calling Texas out supposedly for doing now. Even after Dems pack the state's top courts, the justices will find it's hard to swallow Hochul's ordering up a new map, just because she's changed her mind about the one she signed into law a year ago. So she needs to get the state constitution amended first, and that's at least a 2-year process that she'd have to start by calling a special session since the legislature finished for the year months ago. Hochul just jumping on the Democrat outrage wagon, along with Governor Newsom and Pritzker. Yeah, unlike those two blowhards, Hochul isn't even eyeing a 2028 presidential run. So why bother? Are you sure? I'm almost standing with Stefanik at this point, with the language that Hochul's using, unless she's that scared of Stefanik for the governor's race. But boy, she sounds like someone that's thinking about it. Our best guess, she figures Democrats are so deep in denial that they'll turn on her if she doesn't join in the fibbing. Which prompts the question, who's more pathetic here, Hochul or her whole party? That's a great line from the Post. Yeah, she doesn't want them to turn on her. She likes the national attention, even though she bombs it every time, especially if you watch that speech at the DNC last year. She even messed up her first line. So yes, the Post is spot on. Good government groups fired back at Hochul over her redistricting after she tells them politics is a political process. Let's see, where is it here? Where's the exact quote? 2 of the primary good government groups that Hochul was calling out responded with a couple of liners of their own, saying, we fundamentally don't think that New York is going to save American democracy by gerrymandering. An eye for an eye leaves the world blind, while noting that they understand why Democrats would be concerned The governor and the legislature aren't going back to the drawing board and making an independent process that puts voters first. They put their cards on the table and saying this is about drawing lines to favor one party over the other. You can't get further from an independent process than the majority party drawing lines to benefit themselves. I mean, they have a supermajority. Keep that in mind. If districts are drawn to favor one party over the other, that means that one side loses, and that's New York voters. Horner likewise noted Texas and maybe other red states are under pressure from the president to rig their elections to help Republicans get elected. It's understandable why Democrats would hate that idea, but we believe that redistricting is about the public, not about the political parties. Mike Lawler, who was at one point looking to run for governor, has backed out of that. Lawler condemned Texas Republicans' gerrymandering, saying that it is wrong. I think it's wrong what Texas is doing. I don't support it. I think it's wrong. We have to actually have neutral districts across the country. It would serve the country better. So that's Mike Lawler. Now, we got to take a break, don't we? How late am I running? All right, if you are just joining us, Steuben County has decided to file for an appeal in that case against the sheriff, where the sheriff was completely vindicated. The sheriff won that easily with very strong language that the Supreme Court used against the county. That county, who is already somewhere around $250,000 into this fight against the sheriff for some reason, now looking to spend more money of taxpayer dollars to file an appeal. And again, I asked the question, what is the appeal really even about? We're not sure. There was no monetary value with what the Supreme Court decided. So I guess it's just to have them reword, which they won't do. I mean, I think they could have went even stronger, even though they worded it very strongly, but saying that this was all done in bad faith and that there shouldn't be as many executive sessions. They should be more open and transparent to the public, but apparently they want to spend your money and also not be transparent. I guess is the way to look at that at face value. But let's take a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox running late, but I'm glad you're with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you for joining us. We're getting so many comments coming in, but not a lot of waves this morning. That's how it works sometimes. All right, let's go to viewer comments. If children are starving, then their parents need to feed them. Yes. Good point. Mark writes in my opinion, Hochul is a puppet. She does as she is told by bureaucrats, and her speeches are way out of whack. Yeah, I puppet in the sense I think she's got, just the way she used the talking point, fire with fire, and all's fair in love and war. She's just getting, because she's in the major New York, the big media market, she'll get a lot of attention just because of what she's saying. They know that. So, yeah, they're just feeding her talking points. She's not coming up with this on top of her head. Comment from a different viewer. It's unclear whether it's Democrats or Republicans are responsible for going after Sheriff Allard. So who is responsible? We'll find out more, but if you look at the original votes and even the vote for appeal, it's not a Democrat-Republican thing for some reason. And that's what was kind of shocking to many, because many started saying, I bet you it was this Democrat or this Democrat. As far as I know, the Democrats have stood strong with Sheriff Allard in this instance. Because I think is there more than two? We'll get the numbers from Sheriff Allard tomorrow. Comment from a different viewer. Unfortunately, there seems to be leaders in Steuben County who suffer from Sheriff Allard derangement syndrome. Yeah, which is actually, wouldn't that be SADS? SADS, yeah, SADS. Someone's pride must have been hurt somewhere along the way, maybe even a violation that didn't get dismissed. Steuben County obviously doesn't have any problems to solve if the focus is bashing the sheriff. Great point. At a time when they talk about the funding being cut because of Hochul and blah, 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 we decided to take the tax dollars and go after the sheriff once again, putting him in this mess, causing more division at the county level. Yeah. Apparently not a problem, not a care in the world in Steuben County. Our only care is to go and bash the sheriff. So I like that. SADS, Sheriff Allard derangement syndrome. Good call on that. Thank you very much. And the reason to that last viewer before that one, I have the vote on the appeal here somewhere. Because I have a file in my desk of trying to save this all along. I'll see if I can dig it up and let you know. Well, I guess it doesn't. doesn't matter because it's changed so much, but I'll try to let you know. Okay. Abbott is taking actions against Democrat lawmakers. Am I already ready for another break? Democrats, let me try that again. Abbott takes action against Democrat lawmakers, saying Texas House Democrats abandoned their duty to Texans and there must be consequences. The Texas House failed to reach a quorum for the second day in a row, as you know. Abbott asked the Supreme Court to remove Democrat Representative Gene Wu from office, one of more than 50 quorum-breaking Democrat House members. In response, Wu accused Abbott of using the law as a weapon to silence his people and defended his decision to flee. Attorney General Ken Paxton asked the court to hold on ruling on Abbott's petition until Friday, which is the deadline that State House Speaker Dustin Burrows set for Democrats to return to the chamber and establish quorum. So, according to Axios, we do have to take a break, but Democrats are going nuclear in the redistricting arms race. Top Democrats are speaking and acting in increasingly existential terms over the audacious Trump-backed push to redraw Texas' congressional map. For Democrats, this moment is an inflection point in the party's Trump-era identity crisis, one that could determine whether fighters or folders carry the torch in 2028. This is war, we are at war, and that's why the gloves are off. And I say, bring it on, said Hochul. Bring it on. That's, again, not clever. Forget the substance of it. It's just old. More than 50 Democrat lawmakers fled Texas. We know all about that. In California, Newsom is eyeing a November special election that would sideline the state's independent redistricting commission and ask voters to approve a new legislature-drawn map favoring Democrats. In New York, Hochul said Democrats have no choice but to pursue a constitutional amendment to authorize new maps, though it wouldn't appear on the ballot until 2027. In Illinois, where the congressional map is already heavily gerrymandered, Governor J.B. Pritzker has vowed to protect fleeing Texas Democrats and left the door open to further revisions of the state maps. So it's already well acknowledged that they're gerrymandered in Illinois. That's where the Texas Democrats fled to, and they're looking to even gerrymander it even further. All right, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's go to a viewer comment. The Texas Democrats, by running away like a child who gets mad and takes his football home, shows just how childishly foolish they really are. Well, Rich Lowry kind of echoes that statement. Says, let's take a tour of the 13th Congressional District in Illinois. It starts in East St. Louis and then moves steadily north. By the time it gets to Springfield, home of Abraham Lincoln, about 90 miles away, it takes a sharp turn to the east, reaching to Cantor, and finally Champlain itself about 80 miles away from Springfield. It's a jagged, narrow strip of territory with no obvious rhyme or reason as it traverses 6 counties. It's less a congressional district than a road map. It appears to resemble the original gerrymandering, a long salamander-like state Senate district in Massachusetts in 1812. The only point of the new 13th district lines, fashioned in the redistricting after the 2020 census, was to gather together far-flung Democrats to create another Democrat congressional district. Mission accomplished. The 13th went from being a competitive district, long held by a Republican, to flipping to the Democrats in 2022. Overall, Illinois lost 1 district after the 2020 census and managed to write lines that changed the congressional ratio from a 13-5 Democrat advantage to a 14-3 Democrat advantage. The political analysis website 538 called the new map the worst gerrymandering in the country drawn by Democrats. This makes it especially inapt that a contingent of Texas Democrats fleeing the Lone Star State to try to stop what they consider unfair new congressional boundaries found a safe harbor in Illinois. Next time the travel agent should do a hypocrisy check before booking a destination. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker welcomed the self-exiling Democrats and hailed their courage. He told them that he and other top Democrats in the state were pleased to stand in solidarity with you and send a clear message to all Americans. His conscience showed no sign of being pricked by the fact that he signed into law the redistricting that saw Republicans in 2022 win nearly 44% of the popular vote in Illinois congressional races and only 18% of the congressional seats. A special session of the Texas legislature is considering new lines that could net Republicans another 5 House seats. Governor Greg Abbott has cited a Department of Justice letter saying that some of the current districts need to be redrawn because they represent unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. The Biden Justice Department had been fighting Texas because, in its view, the current lines didn't reflect enough racial gerrymandering. The Supreme Court is taking up a Louisiana case that could clarify the extent to which states can consider race in drawing so-called majority-minority districts. In the meantime, the partisan effect of the new Texas lines before the 2026 midterms is unmistakable. If Republicans were likely to lose 5 seats from this redistricting, there's no doubt that the state's Republican governor and Republican legislature wouldn't be undertaking it. Drawing district lines is an inherently political enterprise, and parties tend to give themselves the best of it. When Democrats controlled the Texas legislature, they maintained congressional lines in their favor. It wasn't until 2002, when Republicans won the state house for the first time since Reconstruction, that the GOP could redraw the congressional map, and Republicans subsequently won a majority of Texas congressional seats in 2004, also for the first time since Reconstruction. Since Democrats gerrymander too, they have limited options for retaliating against Texas. Pritzker says he may redraw his state's lines, but this would require gerrymandering on top of his current gerrymandering. Gavin Newsom is making similar noises, but the California map is already tilted towards Democrats. Republicans won nearly 40% of the congressional vote in the Golden State in 2024, but only about 17% of the seats. If the Texas plan goes through and all else remains equal, the Lone Star State will have about the same partisan skew as California. Less gerrymandering would be better than more, but Democrats like Pritzker, who blessed his state's meandering 13th district, have no standing to make the case, just like Governor Hochul has no standing to make the case. Do you want to see how far they're going with the rhetoric, though? On the Don Lemon show, which I think is just online, Texas State Representative Jolanda Jones, one of several lawmakers who left the state to avoid that quorum. She's one of the fleeing Democrats. Her name, Representative Jolanda Jones. She said, in Texas, this is racist. They're targeting black people. They're targeting brown people. That is who they are targeting. We have got to say that people see it when it walks like a duck when it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. People see it when you don't speak truth to power, when you don't talk about what's actually happening. Then people don't feel connected to you because they know that you're leaving out something that's truthful. So truth matters. It takes courage to be truthful. And this is very ugly, I think. We shouldn't have to be talking about racism against black people in 2025. I mean, we have the Voting Rights Act and we have the Civil Rights Act that we got passed, but they're trying to take us back. And people want us to talk about the world as how they want it to be, or as it should be, instead of talking about the world as it is. Now, here's where I bring up this point. I will liken this to the Holocaust. So the congressional redistricting Texas State Representative Jolanda Jones said, and I quote, "I will liken this to the Holocaust." People are like, well, how did the Holocaust happen? How is somebody in the position to kill all of them people? Well, good people remain silent, or good people didn't realize that what was happening to them can very soon happen to me or somebody I love. So even if you made it, you have an obligation to help people who can't, because God forbid they end up targeting you and your family. So the redistricting in Texas, even though they fled to states known for their gerrymandering, the redistricting, according to State Representative Jolanda Jones, quote, "I will liken this to the Holocaust." We got to take a break. Stay with us on that note. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. If you are just joining us this morning, Steuben County has filed their appeal in that case with the sheriff. The sheriff completely vindicated. The legislature voting not to appeal, very slim margin, voting not to appeal, but yet is the information we received yesterday, they are appealing using more taxpayer dollars. We will find out a lot more about this tomorrow as Sheriff Allard will be joining us. So don't miss that. All right, moving along from redistricting. One viewer suggesting that congressional maps should be drawn by county lines, period. Thank you very much. And then another comment, the race card again. I'm so sick and tired of this moot point that I could throw up. Ooh, but that's in reference. I think to suggest that the redistricting, and I quote, I will liken this to the Holocaust. State Representative Jolanda Jones. Wow. All right. Because we're running late, we got to go through a couple key issues here. Oh, Trump's national security rules have been left vacant due to the Democrats' obstruction, which is leaving us vulnerable to threats. Crucial national security jobs in the Trump administration have been left empty by Senate Democrats' obstruction, while the White House focuses on installing U.S. ambassadors, leaving America vulnerable to foreign threats. At least 144 nominees were awaiting confirmation when the Senate broke for its August recess, including picks for senior positions at the state, defense, and energy departments tasked with military readiness, nuclear issues, and weapons of mass destruction. You hate to wonder if something, God forbid, happens, if they would blame it on Doge or whatever. But the fact of the matter is they've been pulling, just like they're doing in Texas, they're pulling this, we're taking our ball and going home, to that one viewer's point. They're playing that we don't like that we lost, so we're going to throw a temper tantrum. Brian Schatz from Hawaii, in line to take over as Chuck Schumer's number 2 with the retirement of Dick Durbin, initially placed a hold on more than 300 Trump nominees, a move one source familiar with the confirmation process described as payback for, quote, destroying USAID. Unprecedented Democrat obstruction against every single presidential nominee has left vital national security positions vacant, even those tasked with preventing nuclear devices from falling in the wrong hands, said Mike Lee. While Schumer wants to neglect his responsibilities, President Trump continues to work hard from the White House on behalf of the American people. He has been clear that the Senate must confirm all of his nominees as quickly as possible. That was Ann Kelly, the White House Deputy Press Secretary. Notably, only around 24 ambassador nominations are still pending on the Senate calendar compared to the more than 100 nominees for other executive branch roles. The White House notifies the Senate when it wants nominations to be voted on, and some administration sources have groused that the approach of ensuring ambassadors are confirmed first is akin to having an army of generals without soldiers. It's vital to have these positions to secure regional stability, especially in our own hemisphere. Now, the Senate GOP is ready to go nuclear after Schumer's political extortion of nominees. The path of confirming dozens of Trump's outstanding nominees was destroyed when the president accused Chuck Schumer of political extortion and charged that the Democrat leader's asking price for nominees was too high. Now lawmakers have left Washington without a deal to bundle dozens of nominees that made it through committee with bipartisan support, and change to how the Senate handles the confirmation process is on the horizon. John Barrasso, the Senate Majority Whip, berated Schumer and Senate Democrats for their unprecedented blocks of the president's nominees and noted that every pick that has been filibustered, save for Marco Rubio, who glided through the Senate earlier this year. We have been working through the list, but there's still a large backlog because of the unprecedented filibuster by the Democrats of every nominee. And if they don't change their behavior, we're going to have to change how things are done here because the president needs to have his or her team in place. All right, we got to take a break. Then we're going to wrap up hour number 1, get your last minute comments in, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. If you are just joining us, a breaking news this morning as we wrap up today's edition is Steuben County has filed their appeal. I think everybody was hoping that that would not be the case. Not everybody, apparently, but the majority, at least here, hoping that that would not be the case, as Sheriff Allard was vindicated once before. We're not actually sure what they're appealing. All we know is that it will cost taxpayers more money. This viewer writes in, Frank, could you ask Sheriff Allard how best we can assist in helping this and his situation? This really is bothersome to me, and it should bother everyone who favors law enforcement. We all know that there's abuse in the system and every other system, so we take the necessary steps to correct them. But this is overreach by design, and it needs to end. Thank you. I will save that for when the sheriff is on. It's going to be a major interview. You're not going to want to miss it. That will be on at right around 7 o'clock. He'll come a little after 7 o'clock, but we'll find out the nitty-gritty, if you will, the details of this appeal. This is a story we've all been following for a couple of years probably now. A long time, it seems like. We know that as of reporting that I did back in December on WYDCTV.com, that it had already cost taxpayers around $200,000. That was back in December of last year. Now with this appeal, we'll wonder where that leads. But again, I'm not sure what the end game is here, and I'm not faking dumb. What are we appealing? There was no monetary issue awarded in one way or another by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just chastised Steuben County for going after the sheriff in bad faith, for going into too many executive sessions, for that lack of transparency. And there was very strong language there. But why are you appealing the strong language? Or you're again trying to take away the sheriff's indemnification? Is that what you hope the goal is with the appeal? Or to, I don't know. It blows my mind, and it is very, very frustrating. I know. So let's go through some things quickly as we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Hey, thank you to the viewer who sent this in. I meant to mention this earlier. Hunter Biden says he's got a new job. He's going to be working at a California nonprofit. I'm working with a group now called BASTA, the Homeless Prevention. And I just started actually as Director of Development for BASTA, which is the leading homeless prevention and tenants' rights group in southern Los Angeles. Wonder what he's getting paid for that. Also, I got to give him credit for not cussing in one sentence. Chuck Todd worries the Democrat Party hasn't lost enough to learn their lesson and change course. The question that haunts me is, I don't know if the Democrats have lost enough. To me, when you lose as close as they lost, there's too many. It's too easy to tactically talk yourself into, well, we just do this, this, and this. The last time the Democrats had a real fight about their direction, its direction, was when Reagan beat Dukakis by 49 states in 88. The shellacking of Dukakis in 88 gave breathing room for Clinton to make a counter argument, an argument that the moderate Democrat Leadership Council was trying to make before 88, was making progress but not quite getting there, yada, yada, yada. Comment from a viewer, Frank, Ken writes in, Frank, in my opinion, we should use county lines as district boundaries. The amount of representatives from each state would still be regulated by the state census numbers. Districts would be adjusted at census time by removing adjacent counties or adding adjacent counties, and that would be done by a proposition to voters. Politicians on either side shouldn't be able to feather their own beds. Very good point, Ken, and on that note, we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. So much that we did not have a chance to mention. Again, do not miss tomorrow's broadcast. It's going to be a major breaking broadcast, and Sheriff Allard will be joining us right around 7 o'clock. And we'll find out all about that appeal by the county. Remember, you heard it here first, folks. If anybody gets us after later in the day and reports on it, they probably heard it right here on Frankly Speaking. And that's why you got to tune in every weekday morning starting at 6, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. Look forward to it already.